Welcome to Line by Line, and my guest today again, Michael Loviana. Right? Um, he brought in an interesting song which brought me to tears. It's Northwest Passage by Stan Rogers. So, Michael, why did you pick that song?
That's a good question. So this song I heard, gosh, um, maybe maybe 8 years ago now, maybe a little bit more. Um, but this song is a song that I would often include in this particular course that I would teach at Sacred Heart University, which was called The Human Journey. It was a course in great books in which I specifically talked about the ways in which music, art, literature, poetry, religious texts, various types of literature are structured to be representative of some of the universal patterns of human life. What it is like at various points of being a human being to experience life and our particular peculiarity as human beings to be conscious and be able to detect some of these patterns. This song in particular, the Northwest Passage, I find very excellently demonstrates um, this stage of human life, perhaps expressed as something like youth or later youth. It is a sort of a period of life following, say, what would be called the Bildungsroman in the German tradition, right? So post sort of youth, right? The person has come of age into this particular sort of sequence leading up to what one would call, perhaps the middle of life. So this song, uh, which we'll talk about in more detail in a second, um, speaks about that particular portion of life's journey. And it culminates in this moment where sort of the midpoint of life is reached, and its second half, this sort of right life transforms, or a vision of life transforms from an arc into a full circle, right? It moves from this particular journey destination into a sort of repeating cycle sequence and alternation of arcs and journeys and destinations. So we'll talk more about that in a bit, but I found it particularly excellent to be able to demonstrate this concept to students, and it has a wonderful bittersweetness to it as well that I think is characterizes all of the best art, be it literature, painting, music, or what have you.
I heard the recording which is sung a cappella. I
Mhm.
think his songs are sung a cappella, right?
Many of them. So Stan Rogers, he does have some that are played with instrumentation. He does have some of his songs that he plays on the guitar, but many are also done a cappella. Shall I say a little bit about Stan Rogers in particular and his style of music?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. So Stan Rogers is a Canadian musician from, I think he flourished, as we say, flourish, in the 1970s and early 1980s. He is beloved and remembered even to this day. But Stan Rogers, you'd probably characterize him as a folk musician, and his compositions combine folk songs from a number of different genres. For those of you who saw um, our last episode together on Line by Line, we talked about sea shanties. He's recorded a great number of sea shanties. His Barrett's Privateers is a ballad of that sort, or a sea shanty of that sort. Um, he also has a number of original compositions that are composed in the musical and lyrical spirit of this sort of North American English language folk song tradition. So this song, Northwest Passage, is a it is an original composition by Stan Rogers that was written and composed in the style of a ballad, in the spirit of this North American English folk song tradition. Yes,
Thank you.
1973, I think it was written.
Let's analyze it.
I'll make a few remarks about just the basic structure overall, given that it is a ballad. So it is falls within the narrative genre of poetico musical compositions. It tells a story, so it is different from our prior discussion, right? From our discussion of the sea shanty of Lever Johnny Lever. It is strophic, like Lever Johnny Lever, in that there are verses and refrains where a chorus comes in. It is not improvised, right? It is a set text, and it tells a specific story that is carefully put together and composed. And it has a definitive beginning and end, and every verse is meant as an integral part of the full narrative. So that's important, right? It's important to remember that it falls within this narrative genre, and that the song itself is structured in order to deliver that narrative. The chorus, in particular, interjects and this is common in some of Stan Rogers' ballads. The chorus interjects to remind the listener of the overall primary emotional or affective tone of the song. So the verses move along the narrative, but the chorus reminds the listener this is the mode that you should interpret the song within. So we'll take a look at the chorus now, right? So Stan Rogers, together with the chorus, right? There's harmony to this that goes as well. Ah, for just one time, I would take the Northwest Passage to find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea, tracing one warm line through a land so wild and savage, and make a Northwest Passage to the sea. So this chorus in particular, the refrain, is meant to convey a sense of yearning, and it is meant to remind the reader as well about what I would probably characterize as the dream of several centuries, right? There is a specific dream that is manifest in the song that also sort of alludes to a higher order or more archetypal dream. So the archetypal dream is something like the dream of exploration, right? So human beings, right? We go through our childhood, we come of age, and in the process of coming of age, we develop a dream, a vision that leads us out of the realm of safety of our parents. It tells us to leave what is familiar and our home behind and to go out in pursuit of some exploratory goal, something like that. To go out into the land so wild and savage in order to, it's characteristic here, to make a Northwest Passage to the sea. So to make a road, to make a way where there was none, right? This is sort of, perhaps between different periods would say perhaps this type of archetypal dream sets in sometime in kind of late adolescence, maybe between 16, 18, could be 20. As far as the book of Genesis is concerned, right? Abraham is something like 70 years old when he has his dream to leave his father's house. So, it can happen at any particular point, but it's this dream that sort of go out seeking adventure into go out into the unknown and see what is there. Um, the specific dream here is a more historically and culturally bounded manifestation of that perennial, say, archetypal dream of exploration. And it is the dream of North American westward expansion, or exploration, I should say, but the northern exploration, right? So
Mm.
this, for those of us that might not be familiar, the Northwest Passage was this fabled, um, hypothesized route to reach Asia, right? For Europeans to get to Asia that did not involve going south around the Cape of Good Hope, which is an extremely long voyage. If you're going from England to go around down around the Cape of Good Hope in South America, and to reach the Pacific that way is a tremendous journey, right? There's no Panama Canal until what is it, 1913, 1914?
Oh yeah.
Um, no Suez Canal until 1869, I think. Very, very long voyage to reach this place. So the idea was, well, if there was a passage that went, north kind of above the Hudson Bay and through these great islands north of Canada, well, that would, if somebody could navigate, if somebody could find it, to
Okay.
find the to find the Northwest Passage, it would, wow, you would be remembered, right? You would have, what an adventure it would be, and also what a great service it would be to the world to be able to find this, right? Many, many people tried to find it, but it did not exist actually until our time. Now there is a Northwest Passage, but there was no way for many centuries to go through that northern ice in any safe way. So
Yeah.
there's a specific dream manifest here, and I think one of the great appealing elements of Roger's music is he is also able to not only capture these archetypal dimensions, but also these specific historical and right Canadian or North American manifested variations or manifestations of this higher order dream.
Hmm. It's like to boldly go where no man has gone before, and actually, like to build the road. It's very
Mhm,
dangerous. Like the first person that discovers. Many fell before, but like the
mhm.
first person that finds it. Yeah, excellent. Like there is a sense of adventure, but also discovery
Yeah,
and legacy behind. If you
yeah,
find it, you will live. Your name will live on. It's
yes,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. Well, that is we see some of this too in the verses. We'll go and look a bit closer at these, but overall, right, the sort of pattern of the verses right up until the last one is a series of different, almost like conjectured routes. So the verses in particular have a certain structure to them, which sort of maps out the particular arc of this journey at this point of life. And there is this simultaneous mapping of two different, well, sorts of geographies. There is a physical geography that is mapped out here, insofar as Rogers is singing about um, the geography of Canada or the northwestern or northern North America. And as you proceed west, what are the major landmarks on the geography that you run into as you are proceeding westward, right? Begins westward from the Davis Strait. Tis there was said to lie the sea route to the Orient, for which so many died, seeking gold and glory, leaving weathered, broken bones, and a long forgotten, lonely cairn of stones. So we get this movement westward right from the beginning, and it maps out also the beginnings of this particular historical and cultural dream, which is So many, as we'll see, especially young men, were drawn by this idea of, man, if I'm the one that can find this passage to Asia, to the Orient, oh my gosh, like, all of the what sort of person I will be on all of these sort of expeditions. I will be the person. Maybe I could make the map, or I could be the one that embodies the knowledge of how to actually get across the northern frozen wastes of North America. However, right, the stakes are also mapped out, right? The idea is gold and glory, right? Gold, okay, yes, maybe actual gold, right? Maybe actual money or riches or something like that, but value, right? Gold is a symbol of value, memory, praise, social status, something like that. But of course, most of those, in fact, all of those right up to this point in the time that the singer is embarking on this journey, they did not find gold. That they looked for gold and glory, but instead left weathered, broken bones and a long forgotten lonely cairn of stones. So this idea of all that they found was their sort of improvised graves, right? Sort of a number of, right, they died, their bodies were buried, and there were a makeshift memorial, a very humble, unassuming, sort of anti-glorious memorial in memory of them is what's left behind. The second verse and its subsequent, the third verse, right? So the second and third verse begin to incorporate. We sort of get this at the end of the first verse, but we get an exploration also of memory, not just a physical geography, but of a human geography. So we hear about, in the second verse, we hear about Kelso, right? 3 centuries thereafter, I take passage over land in the footsteps of brave Kelso, where his sea of flowers began. So there is this idea of, okay, we've moved from sort of a little bit more conceptual about what this dream is, still sort of bound in history. Okay, this is what the dream is. You go, you try to find the sea route, you try to get to Asia, you explore, many people fail, many men die, many men fail to achieve this. Okay. But then we get, I'm going, right? I, as an individual bound within the flow of time, I am going to tread in these footsteps where other specific people, other specific pioneers, explorers, bound in time have also trod, right? So we get the second half of this, watching cities rise before me. So as he travels across the landscape, watching cities rise before me and behind me sink again. So this idea of approaching, right, the westward establishment of cities, but then finally getting to this boundary of the known and the unknown and having them sink behind me again. This tardiest explorer driving hard across the plains, acknowledging himself as an explorer. Would you like to comment at all, or should I say a few words about?
I'm just like, it's very well presented. I kind of a little bit taken by the entire performance.
Oh, great,
Wow.
great. That's I'm glad you find it interesting.
You have also a beautiful way of reciting it. The thing that stood out to me, the
Mhm.
sea of flowers
Yes, yeah.
and watching cities rise before me, like those
Mm.
two together.
Yeah, yeah. There is this, right? You've commented, I think, in our last episode, you especially comment, or maybe before our last episode, you commented a bit on some of the water or the ocean and sea kind of imagery that persists through this. So
Yep.
we have here this sort of uh, the second verse moves on from trying to find, right, the sea route. Right, for many years, sailors tried to find the sea route, complete failure. Right. In fact, I think Hudson as well. Henrik Hudson, founder of the discoverer of the Hudson Bay, is one of those examples of someone who died trying to find the Northwest Passage, right? Very old dream into the early 17th century, late 16th, early 17th century. So now it's like, are we somewhere in the 19th century, early 20th century, something like that? It's purposefully vague, I think. But right now it's, well, shifting to overland, right? This is no longer trying to find the sea route. It was deemed, all right, that's kind of folly, passage over land. But despite the fact that there is this passage over land, there is preservation of the sea imagery, of the water imagery. And in part, I think that perhaps captures the character of the unknown, the exploration of the unknown. The unknown is, or Jordan Peterson would probably say something like the primordial chaos. I think he takes that from Mircea Eliade, the pre-cosmogonic chaos, I think is his terminology there. But right, there's an idea, and this is reflected across many genres of literature and mythological traditions. There is something archetypal to the sea and the unknown, the deep. The characteristic of exploring the unknown is like exploring the mystery of the sea and the secrets that lie below the depths, something like that. So we see that, right? The Sea of Flowers is apparently Kelso. I'm not as read up on the specifics of the history of Canadian northwestern exploration, but something like the discovery of maybe the Great Plains as they extend into central Canada, but calling it a sea, and as well having this idea of the cities themselves as they are put into hindsight, right? They rise as you approach them,
There and sink back.
and then they sink, right? They sink into, well, right, into something that you're no longer conscious of. They sink into hindsight, they sink into the unconscious, they sink into something that you're no longer paying attention to, something like that.
For me, it's the imagery of movement.
Yes.
So there is the sea of flowers. You kind of pass by that. Then there is like, as you move, there is a city rose. As you leave the city behind, it sinks. So like there is this sort of movement forward, leaving
Yes.
cities behind.
Yes.
It's a very vivid imagery, and
Yes.
also it's a story. So it's
Yes.
like the
Yeah,
power.
yeah. Well, I think that's a very good point to bring out in terms of the movement. One of the great philosophical elements to this is the synchronization of the movement and flow of the text, the imagery beneath the text, the structure of the structure of the narrative, the fact that it is a narrative, and the music then on top of that, which all of these have these different reflected layers of conveying the idea of flow and movement. So it's hard to miss that point, right? It's like, in case you didn't get it from the music, in case you didn't get it from the narrative, in case you didn't get it from the structure, here it is in the imagery and the words in particular. So yeah, that's really great to point that out. Yeah. So with our third verse here, we continue on into a landscape of memory, right? The landscape of sort of human memory is continued here. And through the night, behind the wheel, the mileage clicking west, I think upon Mackenzie, David Thompson, and the rest who cracked the mountain ramparts and did show a path for me to race the roaring Fraser to the sea. So there's a specific gesture to the memory component in this verse. I think upon Mackenzie, David Thompson, and the rest, right? These a number of Canadian explorers who crossed the Rockies, right? Were the first to cross the Rockies, and he's thinking on this particular passage of, hey, these were the guys that figured out how to get to the other side of the Rockies and make it to the Pacific through the overland passage. which he says to race the roaring Fraser to the sea. Again, the memory of the sea, to race the roaring Fraser, a river, right? So the name of a river that flows west, I think most likely, I'm not sure, but it most likely I think empties out into like the Puget Sound, something like that, maybe where Vancouver is today. That's my thought. I don't know Canadian geography that well, but that's kind of the idea that I get. Um, so yeah, again, this sort of sea and flow and maybe a bit of a Heraclitean image there of a man walking beside a river as he approaches the sea, something like that.
I'm thinking of two things.
Mm,
So first of all, Canada is huge. It's
yeah,
enormous, and it's cold. It's really difficult to go and discover. And the way he mentioned who were before him, it's like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I was not able to
yeah,
do it on my own.
hmm,
And I was thinking about discoveries in physics.
yeah,
It builds up. There is one discovery building up on the other discovery building up on top of it.
yeah,
And it sounds like that. Um,
yeah, yeah. Right. It is reflective of an element of life. Right. It is philosophical in that sense with respect to the human experience of life, and that is how that's part of what we do, right? That's how, as a whole species, we're actually able to move forward. I think you and I have talked about maybe this in the past, right? It's kind of like American football, right? Everybody on the team, right? Everybody on the team, basically on offense, right, has to block and has to kind of sacrifice their body on the field just so one guy can move the ball forward and actually score points, right? So it's that we get that same sort of image of people sort of they took one step so that I could take one step farther, so that he could take one step farther, something like that.
Excellent through line.
Yeah, yeah. So then we get with our last verse here, a conclusion of the song that unites the arc of exploration to a source of continuity, right? So it is a conclusion of this particular phase of life, just as it is a conclusion of this particular journey that reveals the nature of what is to come after this exploratory passage. So we get this reflection. How then am I so different from the first men through this way? Like them, I left a settled life, I threw it all away to seek a northwest passage at the call of many men, to find there but the road back home again. Um, this is, yeah, this is perhaps representative of an experience that I can certainly identify with, right? To have about oneself this desire to maybe go and prove oneself and to fight and discover and to go out into the wilderness and explore and make a name for yourself, something like that, only to realize that when you arrive at the place that you set out for, that you've walked this particular way and thrown everything else behind, that now the journey leads you back, right? Now you go back exactly the way you came. Only what lies ahead of you is a different kind of adventure. That, in a certain sense, it is for you to return, having become a changed person as a result of the adventure that you set out upon. Something like that.
Hmm. It's very often no way back home, though, in
Hmm.
those type of adventures.
Hmm.
Like when I'm thinking about my own experience, when I
Hmm.
set out for my adventure out of the country to a new country,
Hmm.
uh, I never really came back home.
That's
Like
right.
I visited a couple of times, but it was sort of one direction.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the road back home, but I guess it asks the question, right? What is home? When you get there, can you stay there? That's sort of the question at the end of the Lord of the Rings, right?
Mhm.
They go on this great journey. They destroy the ring. Frodo and Sam come home, but Frodo realizes that he never really did come home.
Yeah.
And really, for him, he has to leave, and he goes off to the Grey Havens and such, right at the end. Um, and there's something to that. I think with my experience as well. I went off on my own adventure as a result, physically, in sort of going off to foreign countries, but also spiritually, intellectually, discovering new things, reconfiguring my values of the world, and understanding that where home was a place, maybe, home in a certain sense, it could occupy maybe a period of life, right? There is a world that we understand exists at various sequences of our life. But upon leaving that, making the decision to go beyond that home that we conceptualize in that period of our lives, by going on the adventure, by having these experiences, by expanding and changing our conception of the world, we make it impossible to actually come back to that home, to that view of the world that we once had when we were young and ambitious and filled with a sort of childlike, youthful optimism and exuberance and risk taking of that sort. Um, that's how I reflect. Yeah, I don't think it was when I came home in a certain sense to finish my PhD, for example, after my research. You know, After about almost 3 years, I realized, I guess I can't really come back to what was supposedly here before I left.
It's no longer the same river, and you're no longer the same man.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
that was absolutely a mind-blowing choice and presentation. Would you like to say a couple of words in summary of our today's conversation?
Sure. Um, you know, this particular course, this human journey course that I taught at Sacred Heart University, I taught it and I was moved to teach it in particular because I felt that I did not receive, perhaps when I was 18 or 19, a sort of formative vision for what the next 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 years, however long it would be, um, of my life, and what was to expect, and sort of what my instincts and my conception of myself, or what I thought about the world at that point, or how it would change and how it would develop and what that experience would be like. Um, I got it very indirectly. Like, I got it through, eventually I understood it after experiencing it and having all of this literature, having all of this art and music to reflect on. Um, but I taught this course because I wanted to be able to offer that to people at the very beginning of this phase of their life, at sort of the precipice of making the decision to go and seek their own Northwest Passage, something like that. And it was very appropriate, I think, because the mascot of the school, of this university that I taught at, was a pioneer, believe it or not. So I would ask them about that, and I would try to demonstrate, this idea of, what does it mean for you to be a pioneer? What does it mean, maybe in the context of this song, to be a pioneer? What's this going to be like? Right? What will this experience be like? Okay, you want to go out on this journey, but what does this song say about where you will arrive once you've once you've done that? What does it tell you about what the experience will be like? And just sort of think about that. And I think this this song is, very, it's compact. It you can listen to it, a few dozen times and continue to sort of meditate on various elements of this and think about it in terms and in the context of your own life. And I think it's yeah, it's a wonderful way to encapsulate that frame, that sequence, that arc of human experience.
Thank you. I would like to thank our sponsor today, Free Time, which which you can find under your seats. Check it out. In the description below is the link to Michael's Twitter and Instagram. There are videos couple times a week, I think, or a month that Michael puts out.
A couple times a week.
Oh, wow. Also, probably very soon a YouTube and courses.
Yes.
I think as I will back edit the description to this video, so check it in half a year again. The links will be here.
Yes.
See you in the next Line by Line. Bye. Welcome to Line by Line.
We'll cut that part.
Yeah.